Yo, what's going on guys? Hope you're all doing well. It is nice to see you back. Hopefully you've played lots of video games this week because it is time for your weekly resets. First up, I want to kick this off by saying thank you so much for all the awesome support in the first episode last week. You guys said this is definitely something you can see yourself tuning in for on a weekly basis. So of course, we're back. This is your chance to catch up on some weekly gaming news, talk about some of the games that I've been playing this week myself, and talk about some of the gaming tech that I've been playing with or checking out or trying out. So this week we'll be going over some information on the Xbox SCARLETT family of consoles, talking a little bit about the Nintendo online service, some information on Pokemon Let's Go, and also on the gaming front, I finally had a chance to play through and complete Owlboy, so we're going to chat more about that a little bit later on. And for the fighting game fans out there, I picked myself up an arcade stick, so I want to talk a little bit about that in the gaming tech segment. Lots of cool stuff to talk about today. Of course, this week as well, had a chance to check out Monster Hunter World on PC. If you guys haven't seen videos for that, you can check that out over on the channel. Looks really nice. Cannot wait for the PC players to be able to jump in and join us in Astera, hunting loads of cool monsters, so lots of cool stuff on that front. But before we dive into the video today, don't forget we also kicked off yesterday a God of War PS4 Pro giveaway. If you guys want a chance to win this, then click the link in the description box down below to enter. It's open worldwide, so everybody can get involved. And also, if you guys haven't picked up the Arekkz Gaming Wyvern King t-shirt, that is also linked down below for those of you guys that do want to grab it. So that's what you need to know. That's what's coming up on the show. If you do enjoy this, hit that like button. But let's get started. First up this week, we heard a little bit more information about the upcoming SCARLETT family of Xbox consoles. Now, if you guys cast your mind back to E3 this year, you might remember at the end or towards the end of the Xbox press briefing, Phil Spencer took the stage to announce that Microsoft were already working, or very hard at work, on the next generation of Xbox consoles. And to be clear, he said consoles, plural, and not just one. Now, obviously at that time, no dates or specifics were shared. It was more of sort of an announcement, but people are kind of speculating that we might be looking at a 2020 launch for these new systems. However, since then, a reporter, Brad Sams from Thorough, did actually share some rumours on what is known as the SCARLETT family of consoles. Now, within the SCARLETT family of consoles, it's said there's going to be two systems. There will be a more traditional console, akin to that of the Xbox One right now. Of course, it'll be more powerful, next generation and whatnot, but it's your home console. You buy it, it's got a slightly higher price point, you install your games on it, and you play as you always would do. However, on top of that, there's also a system currently dubbed SCARLETT Cloud, which is a cloud-based gaming system. Now, I know if all of you guys have heard this before, you might think, we've been down this route, seen on live, other things like that, cloud gaming just doesn't work. Well, fair, yes, it hasn't worked up until now. However, if the rumours to be believed, then it's said that Microsoft may have found a solution. Supposedly, the SCARLETT Cloud system will handle things like controller input, image processing, and collision detection. Meanwhile, everything else will operate on the cloud. Supposedly, tasks like that are often linked to the latency issues inherent with game streaming services. So, if this does indeed end up being true, this will of course align with Microsoft's vision to try and put Xbox on every platform. But what do you guys think? Of course, game streaming as a concept has always been quite interesting if it can work. The idea that you can have a cheaper, lighter, less powerful system that you can just throw onto your TV and then play any game that could just be streamed off the cloud. Yes, of course you need internet connections, but of course it does give you access to a lot more stuff. But that, of course, only works if they can genuinely overcome the latency issues typically associated with this service. Then next up, earlier on this week, Nintendo Online membership codes went up on Amazon for pre-order. They're currently available in 3-month and 12-month configurations, coming in at $7.99 or $19.99 respectively. And of course, for those of you guys that have missed that, this is of course for Nintendo's upcoming online service. It's a premium service that should be going live sometime in September. Now currently, yes, you can play games online for free, but they have always said since launch that this is something they will be introducing at some point down the line. So currently, online play for free is of course limited. Titles such as Mario Kart, Splatoon, and I imagine Smash Brothers later down the line, will fall under this premium service. Of course, by buying your membership, you can play online, you can back up your saves to the cloud, you'll get access to a back catalogue of NES titles with newly introduced online functionality. You'll also be able to get some deals sometimes from the eShop. Plus, you'll also be able to use the online Nintendo Switch app on your phone. There's probably going to be other functionality as well that they'll share near the time, but that is slated to go live a little bit later on this year. You can buy a single month, you can buy 3 months, and you can buy 12 months. And in the grand scheme of things, when you compare it to other competing services, it's not actually too expensive. Of course, the main defining factor here is going to be how good it will be. It's completely fine to play for online if it means we get solid, stable online services. I, for one, cannot wait for Smash Brothers to come out, but I genuinely want really good online. I think back to the days when I used to play Smash Brothers online on the Wii U. It wasn't that great. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So if paying for a premium service can deliver some stable online services, then I'm completely fine with it. Then finally, for the Pokemon fans out there, we got some news on Pokemon Let's Go. Earlier on this week, information surfaced on the gyms and the way that gyms will work in Let's Go. Now, if you guys are familiar with current Pokemon games, you'll know that gyms are, of course, the pillars of progression. As you work through the game, you get your badges, you work to the Elite Four. It's kind of your goal. In Pokemon Let's Go, gyms are still going to be present, but one major difference is they'll actually be putting restrictions or requirements on entering the gym. So the way it works currently, in current Pokemon games, you rock up to a town, you go in the gym, you battle the gym leader. If the gym leader's not there, you invariably need to go off and do a task, and you get him to come back, and then you do your fights. But in terms of actually what you equip, while you might walk in and there'll be a guy at the front that'll give you some suggestions, you're ultimately able to do what you want. Your Pokemon can be what level you want, they can be what type you want. It's up to you. You can make it harder for yourself, make it easier. That's the point. In Pokemon Let's Go, they're going to be putting restrictions and requirements on entering the gym. These can range from things like your levels, the actual levels of your Pokemon to go into it, and also the types you have in your team, among a few other things. Now, there's two sides to this. On one side, it of course aligns with the kind of audience they're pitching this game towards, the slightly more accessible approach. It's kind of their way of making sure that you are going to have a slightly more streamlined gym experience. They can ensure that people are actually properly prepared, you have the right levels, you have appropriate types, you don't have some type mismatches that are going to make things more difficult. But on the flip side, for those of you guys that do like to give yourself challenges, maybe make things harder, or perhaps going with type mismatches just because you like a Pokemon, this could also restrict you. There is one side where you could think towards the end of the game, they perhaps might impose certain restrictions that could challenge you, but given the kind of audience for the game and the way they're sort of pitching it, it's probably going to align slightly more with the first point. So what do you guys think about this? Of course, we do still have a fully fledged Pokemon experience coming at some point further in the future, but for the time being, this could well, to a certain degree, restrict the way that you play the game, depending on how you play your Pokemon games. But for those of you guys looking for a sort of slightly more fun, casual Pokemon experience, then you can instead see it more sort of like a challenge requirement. You hit these, you tick the boxes, you jump in, defeat your gym leader, and you move on. Let me know. Alright, so let's talk about Owlboy. Owlboy is the latest game that I've been able to tick off of my backlog list. In this day and age where games release faster than I can complete them, I feel like my backlog is never ending, and I still haven't finished Hollow Knight. I'm still trying to play through that game, still trying to get to the end, but that game keeps getting bigger and bigger. If you guys haven't seen that, check out last week's Weekly Reset. I love that game. But today we're talking about Owlboy. Did it. I finally did it. I completed the game, and I've ticked it off my list, so I'm one step closer to clearing my Nintendo Switch backlog. But this game is fantastic. So it first launched back in 2016, so again, it's not a new game. It's been around for a while, and the crazy thing is this game's had a really, really long development cycle. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but I remember like a long time ago, I saw the art for this game back when it was in development, and I was immediately drawn towards it. Like I love pixel art anyway, but I got these distinct Zelda vibes from the world, and that's not, that's no surprise because the developers actually kind of got a lot of inspiration from Nintendo titles. The way you move in the game is said to be sort of based loosely off of Super Mario Bros. 3, the sort of Tanuki suit, but in reverse. Plus, Kid Icarus, things like that. And of course, the world design, inspiration is coming from things like Zelda, specifically Wind Waker. And you can definitely see that because some of the characters, especially when you're around the towns, they've kind of got that distinct Zelda characteristic. You've got like a little guy playing bongos, you've got sort of one of the shopkeepers over there, the birds, the fact that obviously, the game's called Owlboy, there's a lot of bird people, reminds me of Dragon Roost Island. So there's definitely a lot of vibes there, right? And instantly, way back then, when the game was in development, I saw the artwork, I was like, yeah, this game looks really cool. But you know how you kind of do that thing where a game might be in development and you follow it for a long time, and then it takes quite a long time to come out, and then it sort of falls off your radar for a bit, and then finally it comes out a few years later and you're like, I was waiting for that game. That's exactly what happened with Owlboy. So it released 2016 on PC, and then finally released this year, 2018, on Switch, and it's now available on PS4 and Xbox One. So it's available on all platforms. It is a 2D platform adventure game, so contrary to, say, Hollow Knight, which I spoke about last week, Hollow Knight is, of course, a Metroidvania style, whereas this is sort of more traditional, like, platform adventure. There's less sort of backtracking involved. There's still some degree of it, but it's more just about kind of progressing through the stages, defeating your bosses, kind of following the story. So inherently, this game isn't as big as Hollow Knight. It's, completion-wise, it took me, I think, around 10 hours to complete. So if you're sort of, if you're kind of blitzing through the story, doing the golden line, you're ignoring everything, you're not kind of exploring and collecting, then you're probably going to get like an 8 to 10 hour experience out of it, kind of depending on how fast you're playing. If you do decide to go a lot deeper, and you do decide to kind of start really digging into the game, then you're probably looking at more sort of like 14, maybe 16 hours, depending on how much you decide to kind of go around and collect things. Because, you know, there's a shopping game, you can get items from that. Those items are, you know, of course, in exchange for currency, and you kind of need to go digging around for that currency. It doesn't just come from everything you kill, you sort of have to go around looking for chests and stuff. So, you know, I played through the game, I only had about half the items. There's a lot of upgrades that I would have liked to have tried out, so I definitely have to kind of go back and really dig deep to try and find that stuff. So it definitely offers like a really solid experience. It is a shorter experience, you know, to manage expectations, but for me, when there are so many games going on, I kind of don't mind if I can sort of blitz through this game in 10 hours. You know, I didn't expect it to be like a 50-hour epic. I kind of went in knowing that it was going to be a shorter game, and I was completely cool with that. Gameplay-wise, if you like platformers, I don't really need to kind of explain why you would like it. If you don't, then, you know, control-wise, pretty simple. You play as, you guessed it, an Owlboy. You know, narratively speaking, he's sort of bit of a disappointment in the village, hasn't really excelled in anything. Some pirates came to invade, he tried to sort of help out, didn't do very well, he's been shunned by the village, and in your typical kind of hero story, he's then got to go and try and save the world. So he's the kind of main character you play as. He's got some basic moves, he can fly, of course, you know, you fly around this. It's a very sort of vertical game, a lot of height to it. You can, of course, you know, fly between your different platforms. You have, you know, your spin attacks, your dash attacks, things like that. But where some of the other kind of depth comes into it is you also have companions that can accompany you. Going back to sort of the Zelda vibe, the little guy with the green hat, I don't know why, but he kind of reminds me of Tingle. He's got kind of the big nose. Of course, green is his colour scheme. He's a bit dopey, but yeah, he's one of the guys that kind of accompanies you. You can pick them up and then fly with them, and then you have access to their items as well. So the little green guy's got a little pistol. There's another character who's got like a flamethrower shotgun. There's some other characters as well. I won't talk too much about them, just in case you guys decide to play, because, you know, you are introduced to these characters as you progress through the game anyway. But control-wise, you know, pretty simple. It's more about, you know, exploring the world, overcoming some of the puzzles. Puzzle-wise, you know, it's pretty sort of basic and whatnot, but the fact that you've got your companions with you, there'll be times where, you know, switches you need to activate, you can drop them on things, you can then kind of go off, do what you need to do, teleport them to you. That's sort of the general flow for it. Now, boss battle-wise, there's definitely some challenging aspects to it. Again, if I kind of sort of compare it, they are two very different games, to be clear, but if I compare it to the game that I was talking about last week with Hollow Knight is, you know, more difficult. This is definitely sort of a much easier going experience. There are some challenging parts when you get to some of the boss battles, and again, you know, as with any boss battle, you need to sort of like learn the mechanics, learn the move patterns and whatnot. So the first few times you go in, you might just be getting, you know, slapped around a little bit, but then once you learn it, it's definitely something that, you know, won't present as much of a challenge. But it is just a nice experience. The world is fantastic, the music is great, the art is amazing, and it's just like a really nice place to be. I kind of get that sort of feeling that, you know, when I sort of sit in a Zelda game, and sometimes you just go to these cool places, like sometimes I used to go to sit in just Gerudo Valley and listen to the music, or go and sit in Dragon Roost Island. You kind of sort of get that feeling as well, like being in the town of this, you can just sit there and be like, it feels like a nice place. So it's just a nice game to play. I will say there were a couple of sort of issues I had playing through it, just to kind of be completely transparent. The game did crash on me a couple of times. It didn't really affect my, you know, I didn't lose any progress or anything. I just had to restart the game, but, you know, considering I played through for like 10 hours, it only happened twice, so I wouldn't say it heavily impacted my experience. The one thing I would say, and I can't quite put my finger on why, but you guys know how, like, when you start a new game, you go in the menu, you look at the controls, and then, you know, you spend the first sort of 10-15 minutes fiddling around with them, and then eventually those controls are sort of ingrained in your mind and you just don't think. You just press the buttons and you're good to go. I don't know what it was with Owlboy, but there were many times where, like, you know, I'd play for a play session, I'd do what I need to do, I'd go away, I'd come back the next day, continue playing, and I felt like every time I came back, I almost felt myself forgetting the controls. And I don't know why. I don't know whether it's because, like, their control mapping wasn't the best possible way, but I think about, say, when I was playing Hollow Knight, I don't think, you know, I just jump, I dash, I attack without even, you know, second guessing myself. But I found that a lot of the time in Owlboy, I almost was second guessing myself. And I don't know whether it's because of the sort of companion mechanic, the fact that you're not only juggling your own moves, but also you can kind of swap in your companions, and then of course you can shoot with them and move them around. So there's a certain degree of sort of multitasking in there. But I don't know, it was kind of a weird thing. Again, it didn't really impact my experience, but I just sort of, it's something that stood out to me. I just, like, in pretty much every game I play, I never really just stop and think about the controls. But this is one where there were quite a few times where I just found myself, like, I might press the wrong button, I might have dashed instead of, you know, shooting or something like that. But just something I kind of call out. Again, it's not a, you know, it's definitely not a negative. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting forgetful in my old age. But either way, really cool game. Had a lot of fun with it. Nice to sort of tick it off the list. And it's just a, you know, it's a nice game to see. It's nice to sort of see, obviously this is available on more than just Nintendo Switch, but the Nintendo Switch is releasing some really, really good indie titles recently. Like the back catalogue they're releasing too fast. I can't even keep up with them. I mean, there was a report a while ago where Nintendo wanted to get to a point where they were releasing, I think it was like 20 games each week or something. I mean, that is just ridiculous numbers. I could never even keep up with that in the first place. But I am super glad that I finally went back and I checked out Owlboy. Price point wise, it is more expensive than Hollow Knight and it is a smaller game. So if you watched, say, last week's episode and you're like, oh, Hollow Knight looks cool, watch this week's episode and thought, oh, Owlboy looks cool, which one do I get? I mean, there's no denying you're going to get more out of Hollow Knight. It's a bigger game. But at the same time, this game offers you a slightly more streamlined experience where, you know, Hollow Knight is Metroidvania, leaves you very much on your own to explore and, you know, work things out for yourself. This is much more, you know, you've got objectives, you've got places to go, you've got specific things you're following to kind of work your way through the story. So this is much more a kind of free-flowing experience. So think about it that way. Either way, very good game. Definitely something I recommend checking out if you guys haven't had a chance. In the world of gaming tech this week, we are talking arcade sticks, and more specifically, the Mad Catz T2 Plus. Now, yes, there are plenty of arcade sticks out there, and this is not going to be an arcade stick comparison. Maybe that's something we could do in the future if you guys want to see it. But for the time being, I'm talking about this one because this is my most recent pickup. I really want to sort of start getting back into fighting games. Fighting games are a genre that I have loved for a long time. They're probably one of my favourite genres. Back in the day when I was at school, it used to be the thing that I played more than anything. We used to kind of go back to friends' houses, and this was kind of when GameCube was my primary console. We used to kind of go and play things like Bloody Roar, Smash Brothers, Soul Calibur, loads of other games. I just loved fighting games. You can't really beat that feeling of sitting there with your friends on the same couch and just like smack talking each other when you're playing those rounds. When you win, you just like glow. It's just a really good feeling. Fast forward, of course, to when online gaming became a big thing, and then you jump online and realise that you're not actually as good as you thought you were. Yeah, that's a rude awakening. But I want to talk about the TE2 because more recently, like, I haven't had a fighting stick for quite a while. I had one back when 360 was out, when Street Fighter 4 was big. I had the Hori one back then. And more recently, I've been thinking about toying with one, and since there are so many fighting games coming out right now and fighting games that I'm playing, I really want to sort of get back into them. Now, again, not being an expert, I didn't necessarily decide to jump at the very top end of the spectrum. Of course, there's been recommendations for things like the Obsidian or the Razer Pantera. Both are really good sticks, but both slightly higher at the price point. This one comes in around £139, so, you know, it's still slightly expensive, but it's not as expensive as some of the other offerings. So for someone that's kind of picking up an arcade stick, you know, not necessarily sure whether it's going to be the one that you want to stick with, then this is sort of like a decent enough entry point. It is also a high quality product as well. You've got full Sanwa buttons, which are of course regarded as being the best buttons you can have. By default, it's got a square gate, but it's also incredibly easy to mod. Now, I think back to when I first had my Hori stick back in the day, I had to actually solder things, you know, I had to solder buttons on, I had to kind of, changing things was just a lot more difficult. It wasn't sort of created to make it easy to mod. In fact, I actually broke one of the sticks back in the day because I messed up the soldering. Not ideal, but either way it happens. But these new ones, they are incredibly easy to mod. There's a button at the front, you press it, you literally lift up the top of the stick, and it's so easy. It's laid out in a very sort of clear manner. If you want to change the buttons, you can just pop them in and out. If you want to change the gate, I actually bought an octagonal gate, so when Soul Calibur comes out, I can use that instead of using the square gate. You can just pop it on, pop it off. It's really that simple. It's also got a very kind of intuitive layout on the top, so if you do want to do some custom artwork, it's also easier to replace. So just all up, these sticks are made to be, you know, not only good and accessible, but also very easy to mod if you so wish. So very good quality product. It also works on PS3. This is the PS4 version. There is an Xbox equivalent. This doesn't work on both consoles. This is the PS4 version. You can, of course, flick the switch if you want to use it on PS3. You've got your start and select buttons on the back and everything else you want on the front. So very clean layout. This is, of course, slightly wider. It's one of the bigger models. There are slightly smaller ones. I had one back in the day, but I figured I'd kind of go a little bit bigger this time around in case I do decide to do more with it. I'd probably at some point want to get some custom artwork put on there and stuff, but either way, I'm very happy with this. I believe you can also use it on PC as well. You need to get some drivers installed. It's not a simple plug and play. I don't think you just plug it in. I do think you need to install them, but either way, that is pretty solid. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Guilty Gear recently because going back to the sort of story of fighting games, so, you know, it's a genre that I love. I've always loved it. I watch Evo matches and I kind of stay up to date on fighting game stuff, but I also sort of came to the realization that I'm nowhere near as good as I want to be. Now, I've got a lot of friends that play fighting games. Socks, the Monster Hunter community manager, we're good friends, and he loves fighting games, plays them a lot. 269 plays them as well, and more recently, we've basically kind of been going back to sort of fighting school. I said to Socks, I was like, you know what? I'm going to accept I'm not as good as I need to be. Let's train. So we've been sitting in the evenings just sparring in Guilty Gear, going through different games, but Guilty Gear is kind of the one we're playing right now. I'm going to be jumping between things like Street Fighter and stuff, and of course later in the year, we dive a lot more into Smash Brothers. Of course, I won't need the stick for that, but the point is, I want to play a lot more fighting games recently. It's something that I don't really get a chance to do too much on the channel, but it's definitely a genre that I love. I had a chance to play, of course, Jump Force, Soul Calibur, the My Hero fighting game at E3. So yeah, anytime there's a fighting game, I'm completely there. I just love the genre. So having an arcade stick definitely makes it a lot more enjoyable, especially when you kind of sort of start diving into the training rooms. You start trying to sort of like be a little bit more fluid and proficient with your combos. It really does help out. You do of course have a certain degree of relearning, like when you're used to using pad and then suddenly your layout changes, it takes a little while. So my first few matches with the arcade stick were shockingly terrible, but then now that it's started to kind of, now, you know, I've got a layout that works for me, and now that I'm kind of getting more used to it, it's definitely a really good thing. So product wise, yep, solid product, super happy with it. Again, there are plenty of other arcade sticks out there. It's not the be all and end all. The nice thing about this one is it's a good quality stick that comes a little bit cheaper than some of the other ones. So you don't necessarily have to spend top dollar to get this one, but at the same time, you have something that will last. And of course, very easy to mod if you so wish. But that, my friends, is pretty much it for this week. That is your weekly reset. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Remember, if there's anything you guys want me to check out for, say, an episode late to the party, let me know. If there's some gaming tech or a peripheral that you've been looking at recently, thinking about getting yourself, and maybe you want to check it out, then let me know. I could buy it, I could pick it up, I could check it out in this episode, and then you guys can, you know, maybe that'll help influence your decision. Either way, plenty of opportunities for you guys to influence what we do in future episodes, but for the time being, that's it. Stay tuned. Next Saturday will be the next episode, and thanks for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.